The officer radios in that the vehicle is stolen. Airbags have triggered, yet the sedan is still moving. A chaotic atmosphere develops as instructions are yelled out. The stress rises. The unit calls in a major high-speed chase, confirming the suspect is heading south directly into oncoming highway traffic lanes. Suddenly, the vehicle halts completely. Officers approach cautiously. She tries to act completely normal. The deputy immediately demands she turn off the engine. She cooperates with the order. He repeats his demand firmly. He requests dispatch to clear the local channel. Contact is established with the dangerous runaway driver. Now they must remove her from the car. Another patrol unit is needed to block lanes, ordering her to exit immediately. No delays tolerated. Shockingly, children are inside. The officer acknowledges but prioritizes getting her out. She insists on retrieving the toddlers herself first. Right away, deputies assure her that backup will assist, but she must step away from the wheel. Unbelievably, she stays focused on her call, telling her mother she just crashed while deflecting blame and acting completely confused. She begs her mom to wait on hold. She begins worrying about unimportant personal belongings. Officers direct her off the active road. Tension stays high. Now, you see the officers realize there is another passenger left inside the crashed vehicle. They demand the other occupant step out immediately, securing the suspects. They comply under pressure. The primary deputy requests paramedics to the scene to evaluate for potential substance impairment. Praise follows. Let's check in on the kids who were inside. Thankfully, they escaped unharmed. First, the deputy checks for injuries. She claims they are fine, but he still requests paramedics. They try calling for help. He urges them to dial. All right. She scrambles for her phone. The officer confirms the medical request. A medical unit is en route. Understood. The driver explains she was just heading home. She desperately repeats her excuse to him. He needs clarification on who they contacted. Listen. He tells his partner to reposition the cruiser. They need the patrol car blocking traffic. This creates a safer perimeter around them. He tells the driver to wait. Okay. She explains they left a recreation center. He clarifies this. Yeah. She starts naming every single passenger in there. It is a full car of relatives. He shifts the focus and asks what they struck. She claims they swerved around an obstacle, admitting she went down the wrong way against oncoming traffic. Then she complains about a strange smell, claiming the fumes are irritating her throat. She sounds distressed, but the deputy smells absolutely nothing. She insists something deployed inside the cabin, just airbag residue. She agrees, but seems highly disoriented. She claims she has never crashed before. Not once. Right. She repeats her clean driving history. The deputy gets her attention. He guides her away from everyone else, separating them. Hello. A bystander offers some comfort. Welcome. Look here. Let's unpack this intense police encounter together. Watch. Listen. His main concern is checking on the children, getting them medical attention from paramedics. The airbags deployed from a heavy crash. It remains unclear what they actually struck. But the driver tried fleeing the scene anyway, likely hitting a curb during her escape.
It just made us come to the opposite side of the road. And the airbags deployed out. My window is like the side of my one side.
Work on it.
Officers now collect vital identification details. attempting to contact the parents immediately to ensure their safety. He questions the mother about the passengers. Right. She claims the vehicle was still drivable, despite the damage. She explains the complicated family tree, indicating different fathers for the children, which complicates the notifications. Now, the officer tells her to remain close, keeping her contained. Next, he reconstructs the events leading up here, noticing the car stranded on the curb, assuming it was a simple breakdown. But as he approached the vehicle, the driver suddenly shifts gears in a panic to flee, ignoring the police lights flashing behind her, and accelerating. Did she crash after that? Not quite. The previous collision had already done damage. She was driving with deployed airbags. An extremely dangerous situation indeed. Who are the kids here? Indeed. The behavior is highly suspicious. The officer detects illegal drugs. Exactly. The suspect tries to deny being the driver, making weak excuses to the police. Physical evidence will prove her wrong. She frantically tries hiding the evidence. You and I can see the vehicle beginning to veer. The deputy immediately blocks her path with sirens. Upon approaching, he notices several children inside. They are staring back, surrounded by deployed airbags. A severe wreck. Investigators now ask about the seating arrangement. One child was riding in the front passenger seat, specifically the oldest of her 5 kids, while the rest were piled in the back, crammed into the rear, unbuckled. Officers request her name. She hesitates. Sensing her panic, the deputy tries to calm her. He gently asks for her first name. Again, she identifies herself as Deanna. The officer requests her surname, Muller. He assures her the kids are safe and leads her away from the wreckage to get answers. What happened? She claims that everything happened too fast. The deputy immediately asks if she fell asleep, which seems highly likely. Deanna admits she has a bedtime, which is normally around 10 p.m. or 10:30, staying awake past that hour. It is now 1:10. Causes her to black out suddenly, nodding off without any warning, failing to realize she is slipping away, which is an absolute recipe for disaster. She tried desperately to keep herself awake by blasting loud gospel music, with all her kids singing along, moments before this terrifying crash occurred. Unbelievable. Understood. But we have a critical detail to address. Why did she flee from the police and run? You and I can see her making excuses. She claims total ignorance here, but the deputy points out a massive red flag, a blaring siren right ahead. She still denies it. Even her own children notice the police car, yet she remains totally oblivious, or acts like it. Watch how she tries to deflect the blame by insisting she was driving safely, despite the evidence. The deputy calls out her dangerous driving. She keeps repeating her weak excuse. He saw her veer off. Unbelievable. Now she shifts to a bizarre explanation, rambling about where she was supposedly heading, mentioning church as if that excuses her behavior, or something else, like firefighting stations. It is a classic deflection tactic. Now the deputy focuses on securing the kids' safety. First, she confirms the dad is on the line, asking if he can come get them. She talks to the father on speakerphone now, explaining her current police interaction and location, giving him their coordinates near Australia, while still sounding somewhat confused. The officer redirects her to their destination. They map out where the intercept actually took place, right by the main intersection here, near the busy intersection, specifically by Gun Club Road, to guide the father to them. Let's watch how the deputy takes control, directing his partner to watch the kids while he conducts his search, keeping everyone safe and secure. Smart. Checking her condition. She nods, feeling okay. Pain is beginning to set in. She seems overwhelmed and resists the help. The witness explains why he was paying attention. The deputy reassures her to calm things down. She brings up her grandbabies in her distress, like a mother. The deputy asks if someone can watch them. Right. He reactivates his microphone to document the interview properly, ready to record the witness testimony. He asks where they were before the crash, confirming their last known location. They confirm. Officer acknowledges. Next question. Asking if she struggles with night driving. Darkness. The father explains she was actually asleep. Her boyfriend had taken the car keys. The children's father took them by mistake. Accidentally. Officer pauses the conversation. He had gone to retrieve them, to grab those keys. Everyone fell asleep while waiting, knowing she was exhausted. She was clearly running on empty. Officer listens. They slept during the drive back to get her car. They planned to drop her off, and his wife offered to drive her home so she could rest, to keep her safe, since she looked completely exhausted. But she refused the ride and drove off anyway. They parted ways right before the accident happened. He needed to get home because of his work schedule. Early, a relative interrupts with a sudden accusation. Officer refocuses. Now, the deputy decides to address the elephant in the room. He asks the hard question directly. Was she drinking before getting behind the wheel? The man immediately starts laying out his alibi. His dog. The officer listens, explaining that pets are banned inside the facility. He claims he was forced to wait outside around 10:30 p.m., just before closing time. At midnight. Understood. He explains his wife planned this outing for the grandkids during their school holiday they call spring break. The officer nods along. He had been watching them all week, looking after the youngsters, confirming they had them all week. He confirms. Now the deputy tries to piece the timeline together, asking if the grandmother and the children were actually hanging out at the local fun depot. Correct. Then he asks if she was just visiting them or supervising, clarifying she also had two other children there. Let's watch closely. A relative arrives. Officer reacts. She checks on them. She tries to herd them toward her car. But wait. The deputy steps in to halt her, needing to verify exactly who she is taking, since there are multiple children piling out of the vehicle and into her custody. This is where the situation gets messy. Hold on. She explains that only 4 of them are her direct relatives, specifically her niece and nephew. Just those, pointing out that one child is staying. The officer clarifies who is remaining behind, letting them leave. She starts loading them into her vehicle. We watch. First, the children. He checks who they belong to. Just her relatives. A niece and nephew. She is just there to help out, getting the kids out safely. Right. Then, names. The deputy asks for a quick favor here, prior to leaving. Agreed. He wants her to talk to his backup partner. Right there. She readily complies. He needs her full name for the record, since minors were present during this crash. Sane. Understood completely. Police must track where the children are heading, in case investigators need to follow up later, to ensure their safety. Clear. Home. Confirming the destination. His partner approaches. Finished. He voices serious concerns about the driver. It makes sense. Checking records. Right. Searching for his backup. Wait. Spotting him nearby. Let's look at this closely together. The driver claims she is just exhausted from work. No. She veered completely off the pavement. Left road. Striking what exactly? A metal sign. The deputy is listening. Her nervous reaction tells the whole story. We see it clearly now. She scoffs loudly. She hesitates. Right. She tries shifting to her kids. The deputy tells her to step over here. Now. He prepares to deliver bad news, warning her that this will sting a bit, just slightly. Understood. But, first, he clarifies his role here. He explains that the traffic investigation is finished. The accident report is done. She seems confused by this. Closed. Meaning the initial traffic officer is done. He shared all her statements with her. They already took down her version of events. The physical evidence has been fully documented. There are no more routine questions left. The crash portion is completely finished. Clear. Now, This becomes a criminal investigation. Right. Watch how she struggles to understand this term. Investigation. Criminal. He has to break down the definition. Laws may have been broken, and that is his focus right now. Okay. Understand. She is still trying to grasp the situation. Here. Asking for clarification. Notice her playing a bit confused and apologetic. The officer keeps his tone calm and reassuring her that questions are perfectly fine. However, he points to his physical observations, such as slurred speech. He has probable cause to suspect something, and he is officially beginning his inquiry, specifically a suspected crime. She immediately gets defensive, playing the victim card here. The officer shuts down that extreme accusation right away. He is keeping things calm, lowering the temperature, trying to steady her, but she is still deflecting. Now he redirects her back to the facts. The accident scene is cleared. This is a criminal probe now. He is testing her comprehension. He wants to ensure she understands. The initial wreck is old news. Criminal. He defines the legal boundary, clarifying that this is strictly about an offense. He is looking into an active offense. Exactly. He needs her verbal agreement. Still trying to use her children. The officer points to how she was driving, plus her visible physical indicators. He is building a case for a sobriety check, suspecting she is driving under the influence, while she had kids in the car. Understood. Right. Indeed. He wants to see if she gets it. She finally admits she does. Next. Now the officer begins building a timeline. This stall tactic is very common. Notice her hesitation and vague language. She is struggling to pinpoint the hours. Around 11. The deputy locks in that answer. She backtracks slightly. Here comes the deflection story. Understood. She brings up her ex to divert attention, creating drama, pointing out the recent verbal fight. The deputy remembers the hostile male. An obvious understatement by law enforcement. A classic tactic to keep focus off her own actions. The deputy probes his mindset. Hesitation. He acts completely immature. The deputy points out the suspect's childish attitude, disrespecting the senior officers. This behavior is telling indeed. He tries to find what triggered this reaction. The driver plays dumb. Acknowledged. Offering no real answers. Stalling. Right. Then, deflection. Notice how he tries to change the subject now, attempting to paint himself in positive light, bringing up Faith to build instant rapport. Then, watch. Listening. The admission. He casually admits to having a drink earlier. The deputy latches on. He names the brand, confirming the exact drink count, minimizing his intake. Understood. Supposedly, anyway. Establishing a clear timeline is crucial. He hesitates on the time, thinking, using his mother's arrival as a reference, pinning the drink down to 9 p.m. Roughly. Approximately. 9 p.m. Confirming the estimate again. Noted. He seems confident, checking if there were other drinks beforehand. He insists it was isolated. Is he lying? Doubling down now. Right. But the deputy begins pressing him for the truth. The officer notes a powerful odor of alcohol. Suspect seems trapped, hesitating. He points out the smell is coming from her breath. The deputy is digging for a confession. Her entire body radiates the scent. She plays dumb. Classic stalling tactic. Now she admits to having a single Heineken. She blames the brand's strong aroma, trying to minimize her actual intake. Comparing beer brands. The officer listens. She keeps reiterating the same excuse. The infamous one-drink defense. He pivots to vehicle maintenance questions, ruling out pre-existing mechanical issues. None. She claims it only needed basic maintenance. Just a routine oil change. That rules out mechanical failure. Nothing else wrong. Next, he assesses her physical condition. No. The officer wants to confirm she is unhurt at all. She mentions a minor leg ache, pointing to her lower leg as sore, showing the deputy where it hurts. Her calf. Correct. Noted. Just some minor soreness. No major trauma here. Right. Checking for medical issues. Negative. No. She rules out diabetes entirely. He asks about insulin to be sure. Treatment. She claims to take blood pressure meds. Tylenol. The deputy realizes she is confused. Correcting. She complies. Notice his tone. She stumbles over her words. Officers ask about medications too. Rule out medical emergencies. Her explanation is disorganized and hesitant. She mentions treating a respiratory issue. Inhalers. Agreed. He notes it. Now he shifts to her occupation. Standard question. He wants to evaluate her processing speed. Checking delays. Repetitive. He probes. Styling. Confirmed. Establishing her baseline. Exactly. This next question is critical for DUI investigations. Checking fatigue levels. Last night. He clarifies. Watch how she begins to ramble. Sounding exhausted. Mentioning her daily work schedule. 365 days. The officer tries building some rapport. Empathy. She agrees, validating her struggle to keep talking. Indeed, she repeats this specific point to him. He repeats it back to confirm her statement, acknowledging her extreme fatigue. She confirms, sounding tired. Next, he asks about her route, destination. She claims it is very close, just nearby. He wants a specific location. Heading home. Let us watch what happens next. Pay attention. The officer begins by asking if she ate at the Home Depot. She immediately denies having had any food. He presses to find her last meal. Hesitating, she tries to recall the exact hour. 5 p.m. The deputy repeats this. She claims she ate some chicken and pasta, but she insists she only had one beer. This is a very common defense. The officer clarifies her claim. She strongly downplays her actual alcohol consumption. Now he asks if she feels impaired and highlights her unsafe driving behavior. This directly tests her level of self-awareness. Is she recognizing impairment? But she insists she is completely fine. The officer decides to introduce a standard assessment scale. He compares it to a hospital pain scale, ranging from 1 to 10. This is a familiar baseline for most people. He explains how this rating system works here. Understood. He continues, asking her to rate her own sobriety level. Right. 1 means she is completely, stone cold sober. 10 means she is blackout drunk. She reacts. He asks where she thinks she sits right now. Shockingly, she rates herself at a 9 or a 10, yet she feels fine. The deputy is stunned. She quickly tries to backpedal. The officer points out her massive logical mistake. Immediately, she admits she is confused by the numbers. This confusion shows a sign of impairment. He sighs. He clarifies again. 1 is completely sober, 10 is wasted. Completely gone. She immediately tries to drop her score. 1. Between midnight and 2 in the morning. During that time frame. Right. Notice how she immediately denies being a drinker. At all. Then, she brings up her daily church worship, claiming she prays every single day to prove she is sober, insisting her faith means she is sober. But watch what excuse she offers next. She admits to having a bad habit of. The deputy listens very patiently. Yes, of suddenly falling asleep while driving, passing out. She claims she has no control over this at all. Right, unsure of where this issue comes from, and if she needs a medical evaluation for it. Soon, the officer nods, saying she even drifts off driving home from church in daylight. The deputy acknowledges her story. He remains skeptical. Now, he points out that she has repeatedly denied any drinking. Correct. Okay. So he asks her to take roadside sobriety tests to prove she is safe tonight. Surprisingly, she agrees right away. He begins giving her the instructions, standing with her feet together, keeping both arms straight by her side, asking her to hold that exact position until he tells her to move, confirming if she understands. Yes. The deputy begins a medical assessment, asking specifically about her vision and any glasses. She hesitates before admitting to some driving issues, struggling to explain. Her vision becomes blurry. The officer tries to clarify the details, suggesting it might be an astigmatism. She immediately shifts to her daughter, reiterating that her sight gets fuzzy. He shifts to checking other physical senses, like her ears. She denies issues. He summarizes her general medical state, acknowledging that she is just sore from the force of the collision. She agrees. Next, he carefully checks for head trauma suffered during the crash. She claims she did not. Okay. Then, she suddenly asserts her innocence. This prompts him to ask about substances. specifically illegal drugs or marijuana. She immediately denies. She repeatedly overemphasizes her clean lifestyle, insisting she does not, a common defensive tactic. The officer briefly turns to speak to someone before refocusing his attention. Now, he prepares to conduct the eye test, holding up a small stimulus. Yes, confirming she can see the light. Red. He explains the rules of HGN. The target will move back and forth. She must follow the red light, using her eyes without moving her head, ensuring she understands the instructions. Agreeing. He has to repeat the directive. She seems confused. The driver notes the officer is blocking the stimulus. The deputy redirects him, pointing to a specific spot. He needs a steady target to trace with his eyes. The officer adjusts. The deputy stumbles on his words during these instructions, quickly correcting. Next, we see him pointing to the line. Right. Yes. He asks the driver to identify its color. Yellow. He confirms. Next, he checks the driver's basic awareness. Yes. The officer asks him to raise his left hand, then his right, acknowledging it seems like a joke, but it's standard procedure. He complies easily, identifying both sides correctly. Now, he prepares him for the walk and turn, instructing the driver to place his left foot down, directly at the start of the line. The right foot must go directly in front of it, while maintaining balance without moving forward yet, with his heel touching his toe. Perfect. This test forces suspects to divide their attention, requiring strict alignment. They must keep arms at their sides. Let's see if he can stay in this position, while the deputy demonstrates. And wait for the signal. Starting early is considered a sign of impairment. The deputy asks for confirmation. Yes, but the suspect is already losing his balance. Notice how he immediately begins leaning over to the side. He tries adjusting. The officer now issues a formal warning about refusal, explaining the severe legal consequences involved. A refusal can be used as key evidence. Prosecutors can use it against him in court. This is a standard warning. Do you think he's about to go to jail? Watch. The deputy explains he must make a decision tonight, using the evidence and observation already gathered, specifically the probable cause built up. C. Listen. He ensures clarity. She agrees. Now he asks if she will proceed with the sobriety tests or stop. Refuse, reminding her that compliance is voluntary. The officer cannot force her hand. She is terrified of being arrested here. Jailed? The officer acknowledges her fear. He gets it. Still, he reiterates his position clearly. These physical exercises are fully optional. However, A choice must be made either way. Her refusal forces his hand to wrap up the investigation early. This could easily lead to handcuffs, arrest. Right. He gives her one final opportunity. She tries to explain her hesitation. He explains the exercises are to prove sobriety, helping her clear any suspicion today of driving under the influence behind the wheel. Listen. Now he presses for a definitive answer. A simple yes or no. Will she do the tests? She declines this specific test but defends her past cooperation. Cooperation. He notes her selective refusal of the tests. He asks why she is backing out. What is causing this sudden hesitation? Why? Nothing. She blames her intense anxiety instead. Very nervous. Now, the deputy is offering her a choice here, but refusing might just raise more red flags. He guides her to a flat area. She is visibly shaking here. He positions her by the cruiser. Watch. The physical instructions for the test begin now. He demands a very specific posture. Keeping hands at the sides is key. He wants her to hold this stance. This is actually a split attention test. She must not move yet. Starting too early is a major clue. He verifies she understands. Right. This is the standard one-leg stand test now. The suspect must lift 1 foot up, precisely 6 inches in the air. He clarifies the exact distance for her, keeping it low but off the ground, while maintaining this very difficult balance. He explains how to point the toe, keeping the raised foot flat and level. There are so many details to track. Using arms for balance is a clue. She has to look at her foot and count out loud as instructed. Using the 1001 counting method, she must count to 30 seconds. He adds even more technical constraints. Both of her legs must be straight. Now he demonstrates what not to do. He highlights common mistakes to avoid. Look, see. He reiterates that she cannot start too early. Again, emphasizing the strict timing rules. Foot up, counting out loud. This test is designed for cognitive overload. Keeping her eyes locked on her foot. Let's watch how the deputy demonstrates this. Deputies always look for swaying and leg drops. Swaying or dropping the foot hurts her. Bending the knees is another clear clue. Let's see if she passes. The driver nods. He seems compliant. The deputy explains the rules of the balance test. Dropping the foot counts as a major clue. This shows the driver struggles to follow instructions. He is told to keep going if he slips, raising the foot again to continue the count. The officer demonstrates the exact counting method. This portion of the test lasts 30 seconds. Now the suspect must stand completely still. Keeping balance is key. Arms must remain pinned flat at his sides. The officer asks for formal confirmation. He nods, agreeing to proceed. The deputy prepares his notepad. There is no room for excuses later on. He is cleared to start now. The timer is running. Notice how he immediately asks for clarification. Counting aloud is mandatory. He starts off swaying, unsteady. The officer corrects his gaze during the test. Keep eyes down. He tries, struggling. He interrupts his own count with a question. Distractions usually indicate impairment. He loses his focus, resuming the shaky count. His foot is dropping. Barely. The deputy calls an end to this test. Finished. Next, they move in front of the cruiser camera. Here. Positioning the suspect. Preparing for the next physical sobriety test. Assuming the starting stance. The officer begins to demonstrate the hand movements. This requires tracking complex physical instructions. Extending both arms straight out. Palms facing up. He has her point her finger and drop her hands to her sides. She must maintain this stance during instructions while he explains the test and not start too early, staying completely still until the command is given. The officer checks her comprehension first. She agrees. Next, you and I see him detail the cues. Left or right commands. Very clear. A left command means raising her left hand, bringing that fingertip straight to her nose, then bringing it right back down. You and I know this tests her coordination. Exactly. The right side follows the exact same rule. She has to use her actual fingertip, which is where impaired drivers often miss entirely. Returning her arm quickly to her side. She nods along, but there is a twist here. She must keep her head tilted back, while keeping both eyes shut. Removing visual cues. The suspect seeks clarification. He confirms they stay closed. She wants to be absolutely sure. Keeping eyes closed is a strict requirement here. Now he gives a quick demonstration. Watch. Left, right. Got it. Then, he points out the exact finger surface. Right there. Understood. Since he cannot use his usual pen, she accepts. He uses his finger to point it out. No finger pads, sides, or long nails. This prevents any subtle cheating of the test. Pointing directly to her nose tip. She nods. The deputy is checking her nose for drug residue. He is looking closely inside her nostrils right now. Officers call this checking for gold nuggets. She understands. Watch closely. He asks if she has any questions. She does not. Now he tells her to look up. Notice how she tilts her head far back. Eyes shut tight. Left. Right. 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 Left. He tells her to relax for a second. Now, watch her feet as she stands. This specific stance tests her balance. Heels together. Arms must remain flat at her sides. Next, he asks about her school history. Education. She mentions she finished high school. Just high school. Correct. The deputy asks for her graduation year. 2012. He notes that was fairly recent for her. Yes. Now comes the real test. He confirms she knows the English alphabet. Singing the song is actually not allowed. Just reciting. He gives her very strict instructions first. Listen. He wants her head tilted way back. Her eyes must stay completely closed. She has to say the alphabet, but she must speak slow and steady. No rhythm. This removes the song muscle memory. It forces actual cognitive thinking. Skipping letters is a fail. Any mistake shows mental impairment. Let's see how she handles this. Here, the officer explains the alphabet test, telling him to go slow, so he can track every single letter clearly. This makes spotting mistakes much easier. The driver nods. The deputy asks if he understands. Write it down. The officer explains he has a standard checklist and just needs to follow along with him, while admitting that he can sometimes struggle. 2. Okay. Ready. The deputy asks one last time for questions. The suspect says no. Now comes the physical instruction phase. He is told to tilt his head back and shut his eyes tightly before starting the test now. He starts reciting the letters quite normally, but listen closely right here. Notice how he completely skipped J and K, unaware he finished the alphabet. He even jokes about singing the rest of it. The deputy smiles, but immediately brings up the massive error he just made. He completely missed 2 letters. He skipped JK. The driver denies it. He did. But he remains stubborn. The officer insists. She tries denying. He is resetting her stance for the sobriety test. He wants her toes and heels touching. She sounds completely overwhelmed. He makes sure she gets in position. Let us watch how he explains the next phase. He directs her to bring her hands up, demonstrating the exact hand position he wants to see. This is likely the modified Romberg balance test. Closing the eyes removes the suspect's visual reference. He warns her not to start. She nods. He adds a mental counting element here. This tests both balance and cognitive function simultaneously. Pay attention to her physical coordination here. He is demonstrating the physical motions, keeping instructions clear and easy to follow, showing how all the steps combine together. The head tilt severely impacts inner ear balance. No visual cues, counting out loud. He expects her to maintain this posture continuously. He will observe her sway and balance throughout. Standard procedure requires ensuring the suspect understands. She understands. The officer tells her to begin the test. Now comes the real test of her balance. Watch how her body immediately reacts here. Instead of starting, she immediately tries to negotiate, pleading for help, hoping for an alternative to avoid jail. He hesitates. He points out her family is still nearby, but she needs to complete the test first. She listens. The deputy refocuses her back on the instructions. Checking again. He wants her to get straight to it. She has to close her eyes. The moment of truth finally arrives here. And just like that, the officer makes his decision. She is officially being arrested for driving impaired. A tough reality check. He guides her over to the patrol cruiser. They secure the evidence. The suspect complies. Now he checks the suspect for weapons. Ensuring everything is caught on camera, he orders him to spread his feet. She faced driving under the influence and for counts of child abuse, driving suspended, and causing significant property damage. Subscribe to help the channel. The suspect seeks some reassurance. The deputy calmly reassures them both.